An 8-year-old black boy stands up in the middle of a plane full of skeptical passengers. And within minutes, the entire cabin falls silent, not because of fear, but because of the brilliance pouring from his tiny mouth. What he says next. It not only defends his wrongly accused mother, it shocks the entire flight crew, and even makes a lawyer drop his briefcase. You won't believe how this child changed everything at 30,000 feet. Stick around till the end, because this story will restore your faith in courage, justice, and the power of knowing your rights. And don't forget to hit that subscribe the boarding. It was supposed to be a simple trip, a mother and son, flying from Atlanta to London, to visit her ailing father. Dana Mitchell, a single black mother and paralegal, had been saving for this trip for over a year. Her 8-year-old son Xavier was mature beyond his years, with a curious mind and a deep love for books, especially legal ones. While other boys played video games, Xavier watched court trials on YouTube, mimicked closing arguments in front of the mirror, and read his mom's old law textbooks like comics. As they boarded Flight 765, there was an unmistakable air of tension. Dana held Xavier's hand tightly as they approached their row 18. Their seats were right next to a neatly dressed older white man, Henry Worthington, a retired executive with a sour expression and a suitcase of entitlement. He glanced up at the pair with disdain. "Are you sure you're in the right row?" he grumbled without making eye contact. Dana smiled politely, checking the tickets. "Yes, sir. Seats 18B and C." Henry sighed, mumbling something about back in his day. Dana ignored it, focusing on settling Xavier. But Xavier noticed. He always noticed. "Mom," he whispered, "why does he look mad we're sitting next to him?" Dana, as always, took the high road. "Some people forget to be kind when they get older, honey." The flight took off smoothly, but it didn't take long before things spiraled. Around the time drink service began, the flight attendant, a flustered blonde woman named Jenny, approached their row. Henry had complained that Dana's elbow touched his armrest and that Xavier was too loud with his juice box. Dana was stunned. "He's a child and I've been careful not to crowd him," she replied. But Jenny, obviously favoring the man, turned sharp. "Ma'am, we've had passenger complaints. Please respect personal space or we'll have to consider reseating." Xavier clutched his mother's arm, eyes wide. "But Mom, you didn't do anything." Dana's voice cracked as she apologized, not because she was wrong, but because she'd seen this play out too many times. She didn't want trouble. But Xavier, watching his mother humiliated over nothing, felt something inside him ignite a need to speak, to defend, to act. And he was just getting started. Button if you believe intelligence has no age or color. The accusation, 30 minutes. Later, turbulence hit, and the cabin shook slightly. Dana accidentally nudged Henry's arm. He reacted dramatically, pressing the call button and demanding to speak to the head flight attendant. "This woman has been harassing me the entire flight," he shouted, drawing attention. "She's bumping into me on purpose. I think she's drunk." Donna's mouth dropped open in disbelief. "That's not true. I haven't even had a drink." Jenny returned, now with her supervisor, and things escalated quickly. "Sir, are you feeling unsafe?" the supervisor asked. "Yes, I want her moved now." Other passengers started whispering. Phones came out. Someone began recording. Dana tried to stay calm, but her hands trembled. Then, Henry said something that made Xavier shoot to his feet. "This is why I don't fly coach anymore. You let just anyone on these flights now." Xavier's chest puffed up. "My mom is not just anyone. She's a paralegal, and she knows the law. And I do too." The supervisor looked startled. "Son, please sit down." But Xavier wouldn't. "No, you're all treating her unfairly. That's called discrimination, and you can get sued for that. My mom hasn't done anything wrong. We paid for these seats like everyone else." Gasps. came from other rows. Xavier reached into his backpack and pulled out a laminated copy of the U.S. Department of Transportation's passenger rights, something he had insisted his mom print before the trip just in case. This document says passengers can't be removed from a flight without cause, especially based on unproven accusations. You're making assumptions based on race, and that's a violation of federal anti-discrimination laws. He read it aloud with surprising clarity and precision. Passengers nearby leaned in, whispering. A man in first class, a corporate lawyer named Raymond Ellis, overheard and stood up, intrigued. "Kid, you memorized that whole thing?" Xavier looked at him square in the eye. "Yes, sir. And I can tell you this, if you remove my mom without proof, you'll be violating the Air Carrier Access Act of 1986, Title V of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and passenger protection provisions under the FAA." Jenny blinked, flustered. He's just a child." Raymond approached. "A child who just schooled you on the law better than most interns in my firm." Xavier sat down beside his mom, holding her hand. "We're not moving." The cabin was stunned into silence. The backlash and the revelation, Henry's face turned beet red. "This is ridiculous. You're taking the child seriously." But the damage was done. His outburst had been caught on multiple phones, and passengers began speaking up. "I saw the whole thing, and she didn't do anything wrong," said one. "This is clearly racial bias," another said. Meanwhile, the pilot was informed of the incident and made the call to continue the flight without confrontation. Dana remained seated, tears in her eyes not from fear but pride. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered to Xavier. "Yes, I did, because you're always defending others." It was my turn, but things weren't over. As they landed at Heathrow Airport, they were met by airline executives. Raymond Ellis, the lawyer, walked with them and asked for a formal report. He handed Dana his card. "I'd like to offer you a job," he said. "We could use both of you, your experience and your son's remarkable talent." Meanwhile, a journalist who had witnessed the whole thing was already uploading the story. Within hours, Little Legal Eagle Defends Mom on Plane was trending across the US and UK. Dana and Xavier were invited to interviews, talk shows, and even a school that wanted Xavier as a guest speaker. But the biggest twist came when a class action lawsuit was filed against the airline for discriminatory treatment led by Ellis's firm, with Xavier and Dana as the faces of it. Henry Worthington, meanwhile, lost his position on several nonprofit boards after the viral video revealed his racial tirade. In public apology letters, he claimed he didn't realize how harmful his words were. But for Dana and Xavier, the damage had already turned into something stronger: vindication. And at the rise of the young advocate, months later, Xavier stood in front of a packed courtroom, not as a defendant, but as an honorary speaker during a mock trial for high school students. He was now the youngest honorary member of a junior legal initiative in the US and the UK. Dana had taken the job offered by Raymond Ellis and began working on civil rights cases. Together, mother and son traveled across cities, giving speeches about justice, education, and never backing down from what's right. The story of Flight 765 became the subject of a documentary titled Altitude of Truth, A Child's Voice at 30,000 Feet. Schools used it to teach students about knowing their rights. Airline companies quietly revised their staff training programs after the lawsuit made national news. And Xavier? He was dubbed the Little Legal Legend by the BBC and America's Youngest Rights Defender by CNN. But through all the attention, he stayed grounded. He still read with his mom every night, still dreamed of one day becoming a Supreme Court justice, and still carried the laminated copy of the Doty Passenger rights in his backpack, just in case. Because as he once told a crowd of thousands during a civil rights march in Washington, D.C., you don't have to be old to understand the law. You just have to understand fairness and speak up when someone is being silenced. Even if you're only 8 years old. The crowd erupted in applause. And in the front row, Dana wiped a tear and clapped louder than anyone else.